The scent of burning sage and bitter herbs was a public shroud for my deepest shame. I stood at the edge of the stone circle, my simple dress fluttering in the cruel autumn wind, trying to ignore the 20 pairs of eyes that saw nothing but failure. They called me Barren, a curse upon the pack, but as Elder Martha raised her empty hands in judgment, I felt a tremor in the earth, a sign that the curse was a lie. I was rejected by my pack, but as I turned away, the king of all alphas watched from the shadows. He didn't see the shame. He saw the storm. He saw the future queen. The air was thick with the suffocating scent of stale wood smoke and bitter ancient herbs. It clung to the lining of my lungs, a physical manifestation of the dread pooling in my stomach. I stood at the very edge of the rough stone circle, my simple faded dress a stark contrast to the ceremonial robes of the elders. The harsh autumn wind bit at my exposed skin, but the chill that truly settled deep in my bones came from the 20 pairs of eyes of my own moonshadow pack, that saw nothing but failure. The fertility ritual was more than just tradition. It was the lifeblood of our pack. It was where omegas were blessed by the moon goddess for the coming mating season. But for me, Anya Bellwether, this yearly ceremony was nothing but a cruel, public parade of my deepest shame. It was a yearly reminder of what I could never be: a mother, a mate, a valuable member of the pack. The silent judgment was worse than any shouted insult. Every omega before me had received the sacred mark. I was the anomaly, the blight, the disruption in the sacred order. "Anya!" Elder Martha's voice cracked, dry and brittle as sun-baked earth, cutting through the heavy silence. "Step forward." My heart hammered against my ribs, a desperate, trapped bird trying to escape. I moved toward the center of the circle, the worn soles of my boots barely making a sound on the cold, ancient stones. The elders, Elder Martha, Elder Jonas, Elder Thea, had arranged themselves around the perimeter, their faces a carefully crafted mix of detached pity and palpable disapproval. Elder Jonas, our pack's lead healer, avoided my gaze entirely, a clear sign that he agreed with the diagnosis of my inherent deficiency. They had long since given up on me. Their annual duty was simply to confirm the rejection. Behind them stood the rest of the pack. Their hushed conversations had already resumed, a low, murmuring tide of gossip and impatience. Why waste time watching a barren omega? They knew the outcome before the ritual even began. I could hear whispers. The goddess has forgotten her. The line ends here. I clenched my jaw and focused on the only thing that mattered: dignity. I would take the judgment standing, without flinching. I clutched the small, tarnished silver crescent pendant hanging around my neck, my mother's last gift. It depicted a waxing moon, a promise of potential and growth, even when the darkness seemed absolute. "Remember that light always returns, little one," she'd whispered on her deathbed. For years I had clung to those words, hoping they might someday prove true for me. Elder Martha approached, her movements slow and deliberate, designed to maximize the spectacle. She held a small, empty clay bowl. This was the moment. The bowl should have contained the sacred red ochre, a vibrant, earthy mark of fertility and the goddess's favor. Her hand, weathered and trembling, lifted the empty vessel high for all to see. "The moon goddess reserves her favor for those she deems worthy of propagation," she declared, her voice carrying the sting of a public flogging. "Anya Bellwether has been examined by our lead healers, and for the 4th year is confirmed barren. The curse she bears is a decision from the divine, a fate not to be undone. We mark her with nothing, as she can contribute nothing." The word curse was a familiar, painful brand, searing itself onto my identity. It was a word that had shaped my entire life, forcing me into the shadows, isolating me. I felt the hot flush of humiliation rise from my neck, but I forced my posture straight, refusing to cower. I held the elder's gaze until she finally looked away. "Dismissed," Elder Martha finished, the word of final, damning judgment that severed me from my community. I turned away, trying to disappear instantly into the anonymity of the forest edge, desperate to escape the judging eyes. But as I spun, my eyes involuntarily snagged on a movement near the colossal, ancient oak that marked the boundary of our sacred land. I froze mid-step, the chill of the ritual instantly forgotten, replaced by a deep, instinctual terror. A figure stood there, partially cloaked in shadow, yet radiating an undeniable, raw, and lethal power that felt like a physical heat wave. It was him, the king of all alphas, King Kalen Volkov, ruler of the 7 territories. He was a myth to us, a distant, terrifying legend of absolute authority, who should never have graced the meager, forgotten ritual of a minor pack like ours. His eyes, deep amber, burning with an almost predatory intensity, snapped onto mine across the entire clearing. For a fraction of a second, the world dissolved. The crowd, the elder, the shame, all vanished. I felt a powerful jolt. An electric current of absolute primal awareness surged between us. It was a connection so profound, so sudden, it felt like a psychic violation. He didn't just look at me, he saw me, stripping away the layers of shame and rejection, looking past the barren omega to something far deeper. His gaze was searching, recognizing, and utterly possessive. Then, as silently and mysteriously as he had appeared, he melted back into the deep forest shadows, leaving me breathless, trembling, and deeply marked by his presence. Later, I walked the well-trod path toward the secluded hot springs, my muscles tight with suppressed emotion. The pack feast was beginning, full of loud, boisterous mating calls and triumphant chatter. I needed the solace of the water. My only friend, Sarah, walked with me. Her forehead bore the fresh, proud mark of the fertility blessing, and she kept looking nervously back toward the clearing. "Did you see him?" she whispered, clutching her shawl. "King Kalen. I thought I was hallucinating." "He was watching you, Anya. Right when the elder dismissed you. He didn't look angry. He looked interested." "I saw a shadow," I lied, unable to articulate the sheer, overwhelming force of his presence. "A wolf, perhaps." The memory of his intense gaze sent a strange, electric flutter through my core, a feeling that warred violently with the dull ache of my humiliation. Why me? Why here? We reached the springs. The steam swirled in the twilight like an ethereal silver mist beneath the rapidly rising full moon. I eased myself into the mineral-rich, comforting warmth of the water, letting the heat soothe my aching muscles. I was grateful for the fleeting sense of peace. But the silence didn't last. That familiar, prickling sense of being watched returned, raising the fine hairs on the back of my neck. My heart rate immediately spiked. Not a wolf. A twig snapped nearby, unnaturally loud in the quiet night. Then, an imposing silhouette stepped out of the shadows, blocking the moonlight. King Kalen Volkov. He was breathtaking and terrifying in equal measure. He stood at the water's edge, his chest bare, sculpted like a dark marble deity, muscles corded and powerful. His dark hair was falling in heavy, wet waves, suggesting he had recently been running. His eyes, now closer and even more terrifying, gleamed like a predator's, focused entirely and uncompromisingly on me. Sarah gasped, a small, panicked sound, sinking deep into the water until only her chin and eyes were visible, desperate to hide. "Leave us, Sarah," the king commanded. His voice was a deep, gravelly baritone, resonating with an unassailable alpha authority that crushed all will to resist. Sarah scrambled out of the water, snatched her clothes, and fled into the night without a backward glance, leaving me alone, exposed, and utterly vulnerable in the steaming pool. I gripped the slick edge of the rock pool, forcing myself to meet his challenging gaze. I would not look away. "You are the rejected Omega," he stated, his words cutting through the steam like ice. It wasn't a question. It was a cold, brutal statement of fact. "I have a name," I challenged, the automatic defiance shocking even myself. It was the survival instinct of the outcast speaking. "It's Anya." A flicker of genuine, reluctant amusement crossed his face, a sudden warmth that momentarily softened his severe features. "Anya Bellwether," he repeated, tasting the sound of it, the name rolling off his tongue with a weight it had never possessed before. He crouched at the water's edge, effortlessly balancing on the smooth stone. He brought his face close enough that I could clearly smell his intoxicating, overwhelming scent. Earth, crisp pine, and a raw, untamed power that made my Omega instincts scream, submit, and claim simultaneously. "That is what interests me, Anya. The pack humiliated you, dismissed you utterly. Yet you do not cower. You accept your fate without apology, displaying a quiet fire in your eyes. Most Omegas would be broken." "To despair is to die," I replied, forcing a steady gaze, determined not to let him see the tremor running through my limbs. "If I accepted their pity, I would cease to be myself. You believe you lack the ability to bear children. You believe you are cursed, a damaged vessel, fit only for the outskirts." He reached out, his fingers brushing the silver crescent pendant at my throat. The contact was an intense, electric shock that jolted my entire being, sending a powerful wave of energy down to my toes. "Or perhaps," he murmured, his voice dangerously low, a conspiratorial whisper, "you were simply concealed. Concealed by those who feared the true power that lies dormant within you, waiting for the right catalyst." He paused, letting the implication hang heavy in the air. "Barren is a label placed on the weak. You are not weak. You are merely latent." He then rose abruptly, the moment of charged intimacy shattered by his sudden movement. His expression hardened, becoming regal and distant once more. "Return to your home. Tend to your elder. We will speak again, Anya, when the moon turns." With a final piercing look that promised monumental changes, he vanished back into the deep forest. I sat there, shivering, the hot water suddenly feeling cold against my skin. The next morning, I was immediately called to Elder Martha's cottage. A terrible sense of foreboding settled over me when I saw the commotion. She had collapsed, delirious with a deadly, rapid-onset fever that had defied all traditional pack healing. Her breathing was ragged, her pulse thin and erratic. Our pack healers stood by, defeated, their oils and poultices useless. For hours I took over, pouring every ounce of healing knowledge my mother had taught me, combined with intuition and desperate energy, into the task. I brewed the rare feverfew, mixed the moon petal paste, and whispered the ancient incantations over her sweating, struggling form. I was fighting for her life with everything I had. It was exhausting, taxing work that drained my own life force, but I was compelled to save her. As the crisis passed and the fever finally broke, she seized my wrist with a startling, almost unnatural strength. Her eyes, though still clouded by sickness, were terrifyingly clear and filled with a preternatural knowing. "Not just a healer, Anya," she rasped, her voice barely a whisper, her grip like iron. "The prophecy. The Alpha King. He knows, doesn't he? He found you too soon." Before I could utter a single desperate question about what prophecy she meant, or how the king was involved, her grip loosened, and she sank back into a deep, necessary recuperative sleep. "You have a gift," a voice announced, and I spun around, heart pounding from exhaustion and shock. King Kalen was standing in the doorway, having appeared without a sound. He wore his alpha power like a cloak, and his eyes held a satisfied gleam. He hadn't come for the elder. He'd come for me, to witness my ability. "You saved her life when your lead healers could not," he confirmed, stepping fully into the small darkened room. "What you did requires more than knowledge. It requires power, intuition, a touch of the old magic that runs through few bloodlines. I have been watching you, Anya, for a long time. You are not what they believe you to be. You are not Barren. You are something far older, far more potent. He walked closer and extended his hand. In his palm rested a tiny black seed that shimmered with an impossible silvery sheen, catching the faint morning light filtering through the shutters. It felt ancient, radiating a strange, muted energy. "Plant this tonight," he instructed, his voice low and utterly commanding. "Under the waning moon. Water it with 3 drops of your blood. It will confirm my judgment and reveal your past." My professional curiosity as a healer, now layered with the knowledge of Elder Martha's warning, fought with a strong, self-preservatory fear. "What will grow?" I managed to ask, my gaze fixed on the seed. "The truth," he replied, cryptic and assured. He waited until I took the seed, the small, hard object immediately warm against my skin, sending a tiny pulse of energy up my arm. Then, with a curt nod that somehow felt like a monumental promise, he turned and was gone, leaving me shaken, holding the destiny of my pack, perhaps even the territories in my hand. I was driven by a curiosity stronger than any caution. What if he was right? What if my life of rejection had been a complete lie? Under the thin, cold light of the waning moon that night, I did as he commanded. I planted the shimmering seed deep in the familiar soil of my small, neglected herb garden. Then, I pricked my finger with the point of my crescent pendant and let 3 fat, dark drops of my blood fall onto the spot. The earth seemed to drink it instantly and greedily, and I heard a faint, deep thrumming beneath the soil. I fell into a troubled, deep sleep, my mind overloaded. My dreams were not the familiar memories of my mother, but of a vast, ethereal, silver-white forest. The ground pulsed beneath my feet, and the ancient trees whispered secrets. A voice, familiar yet ancient, echoing through the millennia, called to me. "Come inside, daughter of the moon. It's time you remembered who you are. The time for hiding is over." I saw flashes of powerful, forgotten rituals, a crown woven from starlight, and the commanding, silver-eyed face of a woman who was me, yet infinitely older, effortlessly wielding moon magic. I understood then. I was not just an Omega. I was a legacy. I woke with a violent gasp, bathed in sweat, the powerful remnants of the dream clinging to my mind like silk. On my windowsill, where only dark soil had been hours before, a tiny, impossibly silver shoot rose toward the morning light. It had grown in hours. Impossible. As I reached out and touched its delicate metallic leaves, a powerful, cold jolt of pure energy surged through my arm. It wasn't pain, but pure, raw, ancient power, a tide of memories flooding my mind, confirming the vision of the night before. I saw the truth of my bloodline, the lineage of the lunar Omegas, concealed for centuries. Moments later, the quiet of the morning was shattered. Sarah burst through my door, her eyes wide with unadulterated terror. "Anya, the Royal Guard is here. Not just a few, but a full troop. Commander Rhodes is at the council hall and they've been asking for you. The king is summoning you. What did you do? The entire pack is terrified." At the council hall, Commander Rhodes stood sternly, clad in formidable black and silver armor, bearing the massive insignia of the Alpha King. His presence alone was an act of aggression against our small, isolated pack. "By order of King Kalen Volkov," he announced to the trembling council, "you are to come with me to the capital Lunaris immediately. There is no time to gather belongings. You will be provided for." Our weak pack leader, Alpha Marius, stammered, demanding grounds for this extreme violation of our territory and sovereignty. Commander Rhodes offered only a chilling final explanation, his eyes cold as ice, never leaving mine. His Majesty's interest in her is of a personal and necessary nature to the future of the 7 territories. We will not be delayed." Elder Martha, now looking recovered but terribly grave, intervened. She signaled for a private exchange with the commander, her voice too low for anyone else to hear. They spoke for several moments, the commander's posture subtly softening as he listened. When she returned, her face was a mask of ominous finality. "The council permits it. You will depart now." As I passed her, she grabbed my wrist, her grip like iron. "Remember who you are, child," she whispered, her eyes full of a strange, desperate knowing. "When the time comes, remember the prophecy. It is your only shield and your greatest weapon." The journey to the capital was a blur of speed and tension. I rode in the commander's personal carriage, cloistered away from the troop, feeling less like an invited guest and more like a political captive. The landscape outside blurred as we moved at breakneck speed. Commander Rhodes, always professional and distant, offered one cryptic warning on the second night when we paused to rest. "The king is not a man to be trifled with, Anya. Whatever game he's playing, whatever he believes you are, be cautious. You are stepping into a political snake pit. There are many who resent his authority, and many who will resent his choice of a mate." The capital, Lunaris, was a sprawling spectacle, built of pale stone and shimmering metals, its grandeur unlike anything I'd known. It rose from the plains like a massive silver crown. At its heart, the formidable Moonstone Palace rose like a celestial fortress, beautiful, opulent, and intimidating. It pulsed with the dense, raw energy of thousands of powerful alphas. Lady Evangeline, the king's steward, an elegant woman with eyes as sharp and cold as polished steel, greeted us at the palace gate. "A bath has been prepared," she said without preamble, her tone bordering on contemptuous dismissal. "You must be presentable for your audience with the king. Tonight, at the full moon ceremony. You will not shame his majesty." In my chambers, a luxurious suite larger than my entire cottage, my attendants began my transformation. They were quick, efficient, and surprisingly gossipy once out of earshot of the steward. As they washed the dirt of the road and the stain of pack rejection from me, they let slip a crucial secret. "Is it true you're the Omega from the prophecy? The prophecy of the Silver Wolf? The one who will—" Before they could elaborate further, Lady Evangeline swept in and silenced them with a single icy look. The prophecy. That was the key. King Kaelin didn't want a mate. He wanted a fulfillment. The gown chosen for me was a masterpiece. Silver blue silk that flowed like liquid moonlight, shimmering with tiny starlight crystals stitched into the fabric. It wasn't the attire of a pack healer. It was the heavy ceremonial regalia of a queen. I looked in the mirror and saw not Anya Bellwether, the barren outcast, but a stranger, powerful, serene, and almost regal. The clothing itself felt like armor. "It's time," Commander Rhodes announced, appearing in the doorway, now in a formal military dress uniform. He looked grim, as if anticipating a battle. He escorted me through the seemingly endless palace, the long, echoing corridors lined with ancient tapestry and guards standing rigid as statues. The atmosphere was charged with tension and electric expectation. The grand hall, when we reached it, was overwhelming. The nobility of all 7 territories had gathered, a sea of fine clothing, shimmering jewels, and hushed, expectant murmurs. As I was led down the central aisle, the conversations died instantly. Hundreds of eyes, critical, curious, and hostile, turned to me, judging my every step, every breath. King Kaelin sat upon his massive throne, a crown of heavy platinum and black obsidian resting on his dark hair. He was the absolute center of power, drawing all light and attention. His gaze, full of knowing, command, and something deeply personal that made my heart leap, found mine instantly. He rose as I approached, a gesture that quieted the entire hall into a ringing silence. "I present to you Anya Bellwether," he announced, his voice ringing with absolute, unassailable authority. "The Omega spoken of in the ancient prophecy, the Silver Wolf's mate." Chaos erupted. The whispers instantly became an angry, desperate roar. The political tension broke like a wave. Lady Seraphina, a strikingly beautiful alpha noble, who had clearly expected to claim the king's hand, stepped forward, her face contorted with fury and betrayal. "This is madness. She's barren. The council's own healers confirmed it years ago. She has no mark of favor, no bloodline to speak of. If she is truly the Silver Wolf's mate, let her demonstrate the power, King Kalen." King Kalen remained unmoved by the political turmoil, his power holding the room in a precarious balance. But his gaze softened infinitesimally as he looked at me. "Do you trust me, Anya?" he asked, his voice low. A request, not a command, only for me to hear. I hesitated. I was standing in a firestorm, putting my entire existence in the hands of a man I had known for barely 48 hours. Yet, the intense, strange connection, the power of the dream, the silver shoot, and the desperate plea of Elder Martha pushed me forward. "I don't know you," I whispered back, truthfully, my voice shaking slightly. "But you will," he promised, a hint of his earlier amusement returning. Then he faced the indignant crowd, his voice rising, sharp and powerful. "The proof you seek will be provided at moonrise, and it will be undeniable, for it will be revealed by the goddess herself." He gently guided me to the smaller throne beside his own, making the political statement clear. I was already his consort. "The prophecy of the Silver Wolf," he murmured for my ears alone, "speaks of an Omega believed Barren. But who will possess the lunar gift and bear twins to the Alpha King? Twins who will inherit my power and unite the 7 territories, bringing true peace and ending the centuries-long conflict. The time is now." "But I am barren," I insisted, my mind reeling, the pack's rejection still a powerful, ingrained trauma. "The healers were wrong," he stated, his confidence unnerving, absolute. "Or perhaps they were protecting the prophecy, hiding your true bloodline until the alignment of the full moon demanded your reveal. The truth is within you, Anya." As the sun finally disappeared behind the palace walls, the enormous central window was fully exposed, and the silver light of the full moon flooded the grand hall, bathing the dais in cold, pure radiance. King Kalen took my hand, his skin warm and powerful against mine, and led me to the center of the platform. "The full moon reveals what is hidden. Let it show you who you truly are, Anya." As the silver light touched our joined hands, a profound warmth started in my core. It wasn't just heat. It was the undeniable, intense awakening of something dormant, something ancient. The tiny silver shoot, the dream, the pendant. It all clicked into place. My skin began to glow with an ethereal, silvery luminescence, visible to everyone. The raw power surged through my veins, bringing with it a flood of memories that weren't mine, yet felt utterly true. I saw through the eyes of my lunar ancestors, women who commanded the tides and the phases of the moon. "The Silver Wolf's mate," I whispered, the words no longer feeling like prophecy, but like my own name, my true identity. A lunar Omega. King Kalen's eyes glowed with an inner deep amber light, a mirror of his own potent, awakened alpha power, confirming his immediate and total acceptance of my true identity. My mate, my queen. Then, the warmth in my abdomen intensified, coalescing into an undeniable throbbing presence. It was a sensation of life, vigorous and dual. My hands flew to my stomach, and I knew with absolute, terrifying certainty the hidden miracle. I was carrying life. Not one, but the twins. I gasped, tears streaming down my face. They're real. They're here. They're Alpha, and they are Lunar. King Kalen placed his hand over mine, his powerful fingers resting over the miracle. The prophecy fulfills itself at last, he said, his voice thick with a raw, undeniable emotion that shook his regal composure. The rejected Omega, cursed as Barren, carries the Alpha King's twins, the ultimate heirs to the 7 territories. He turned back to me, his focus absolute, his powerful facade yielding to show a rare, profound vulnerability. The prophecy may have begun this, Anya, but it doesn't dictate your heart, only your purpose. I would have you as my queen, my partner, my equal. I would have you because you fought, and you possess the strength that the territories need, but only if you choose it freely. I looked out at the awe-stricken crowd, at the man before me, powerful and commanding, yet willing to offer me a choice when he could have simply claimed what prophecy declared was his. The moon reached its zenith, bathing us both in its full radiance. In that perfect silver light, I made my decision. I stepped closer to Kalen, our joined hands still resting over the miracle of our unborn children. I choose to stay, I said softly, my voice clear and ringing in the silent hall. Not because of prophecy or destiny, but because something in me, the core that refused to break, recognizes something in you. Because the rejected Omega in me sees the lonely, burdened Alpha in you, and I believe we are stronger together. Relief and pure joy transformed his features, washing away the tension of 1,000 years of prophecy. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead against mine in an intimate gesture of connection and belonging. My queen, he whispered. My mate. My home. In that profound moment, with the full moon as our witness, and hundreds of nobles looking on in awe and acceptance, the rejected Omega, once cursed as Barren, but now revealed as a Lunar Queen, sealed her choice with a kiss that promised a powerful and undeniable future. And within me, the Alpha King's twins, harbingers of peace and unity for the 7 territories, grew stronger, nurtured by the moon magic that flowed through their mother's veins, protected by the fierce love of their father, destined to bridge worlds that had long been separated by fear and misunderstanding. I was Anya Volkov, the Silver Wolf's mate, the Lunar Queen, mother of the future, and for the first time in my life, I was exactly where I belonged. If you love stories where destiny is sealed by a powerful love, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Don't miss the next epic chapter in the supernatural world, the best place for Alpha and Omega love stories. Come join our pack.